Here is a number that should stop you cold. Almost half of all Americans have pictured it, spending their final years somewhere else. Not the country they built their whole lives in. Somewhere new. Not a vacation. Not a winter away from the cold. A permanent goodbye. And yet, look at who actually goes. The figure collapses. Fewer than 700,000 are living that choice right now. That is under 1% of everyone drawing a social security check. So the real story was never about the ones who leave. It is about the math that keeps the rest of us in place. And that math hides a twist. The cheerful videos will never hand it to you. The cheap apartments. The ocean views. None of them show it. But once you see it, you cannot unsee what it says about growing old here. I have pulled these threads apart for a long time. The cost numbers. The tax fine print. The stories people only tell once they are far from home. I am not here to sell you a beach. I am not here to scare you off one either. I am here to lay the whole trade on the table, the way a friend would over coffee. Because this is a trade, not a rescue, not a disaster. A trade with real losses on both sides of the line. Let me walk you through it. The math comes first. It hides more than it shows. Then the dream. Then the part the dream leaves out. By the end, you will see why most people run the same sums. The very ones you might be running right now. And then quietly stay. That choice is the twist. Stay with me. For most of the last century, growing old here had a clear shape. You put in your 30 or 40 years. You chipped at a mortgage until the house was yours or closed. You banked what you could. And when the work ended, you stepped into old age on solid ground. Not rich, just settled. Settled enough to quit tracking every dollar by the close of the month. Settled enough to finally breathe. That was the understanding. And people did not just believe it. They built their whole lives on it. Or they bought a home. Which careers they chased. How much they tucked away and how much they let themselves enjoy. Every choice leaned on one assumption. The ground would hold. Then the ground moved. Quietly. No announcement. Just a slow drift no be narrated. The deal shifted while folks were busy living inside the old one. And here is the cruel part. Almost nobody got the new contract until they stood at the finish line. Too late to redo a single decision. Hold on to this thread. These people did not gamble. They did not blow the money. They did not skip the planning. They followed the rules they were handed to the letter. They were responsible in the exact way they were told to be. And the system they trusted moved the goalposts after the game was nearly over. So whatever you feel about leaving or staying, start here. This is not a story about bad choices. It is a story about a promise. One that wore thin under the very people who kept their half of it. So here is the deal in plain dollars. A typical retired household spends around $5,000 a month. That keeps the lights on and the fridge full. Now set income beside it. The average Social Security check lands near $2,000 a month. And for plenty of people, it does not even reach that. Their check comes in lower, sometimes much lower. Look at the space between those two. Even at the kind end, the gap is $3,000 a month. Every month. That money has to come from somewhere. Savings. A part-time job. A son or daughter chipping in. Some patchwork of all three. And the gap does not shrink with age. It widens, year after year, like a crack creeping across a wall. Now stack the bills. Rent on an ordinary apartment runs near $1,500 a month. More in plenty of places. That one bill devours 34% of an average Social Security check. Before a single meal. Before a single prescription. Across Miami, Austin, San Francisco, a decent one-bedroom does more than pinch. It eats the budget alive, then asks for seconds. Now pile on the rest. Groceries that cost more than last year. Medications. A power bill that climbed again. A copay that crept up one more notch. You do not need a finance degree for this. The numbers stop adding up. They stopped a long time ago. And right now, millions live inside that broken math every month. Forcing figures to balance that simply refuse to. One honest note. The sharp-eyed will catch it. That 5,000 is a household. A social security check is one person. Couples pull 2 checks. Some have a pension on top. So it is not a clean side-by-side. But the direction is the whole point. Costs climb. Fixed income does not. And the slope only steepens from here. No raise is coming to close it. The gap just becomes the new normal. Here's what makes this different from most financial trouble you see in the headlines. It barely shows on the surface. No crowds in the street. No protests. No single dramatic image that screams something has broken for millions at once. What there is instead is quieter. Millions of small adjustments made behind closed doors. Skip the dentist this year. It can wait. Buy the store brand. Every item in the cart. Push the specialist visit to next quarter. Then the quarter after. Stand in the kitchen and choose. The power bill or the prescription. Both cannot happen this week. And for a growing number, one more adjustment. Go back to work. Walk into almost any big store. Look at who is running the register. Gray hair. Hands that already gave long, hard decades to labor. People in their late 60s stocking shelves. People in their early 70s on their feet for a shift that should have ended 15 years back. The feel-good story calls it staying active. For most of them, it is not that. It is arithmetic. The pension fell short. The savings drained faster than the plan promised. So they clock back in. And under all that money pressure, something else runs alongside. It gets even less airtime than the dollars. Loneliness. The slow collapse of the structure that once made old age feel anchored. The block you knew by heart. The friends who had your face memorized for 3 decades. The family close enough to swing by on a slow Wednesday. For a lot of people, that web has frayed away. The kids move states chasing better work. Old friends passed or just lost touch. The street looks the same. The faces behind the doors are strangers now. And here is the cruelest turn. Even the ones who did everything right are not spared. The ones who cleared the mortgage decades ago. They own the place outright. And they still watch the cost of keeping it climb past what a fixed check can carry. Doing everything right was supposed to be the shield. For a lot of people, it turned out to be no shield at all. And it stings in a particular way. You read the map exactly. You walked where it pointed. You never wandered off course. And still, the destination had quietly moved while you walked. So 2 pressures land at once. The money squeeze, the social fade. Both arrive exactly when a person needs steadiness and belonging the most. And that is the corner where a quiet thought creeps in. Almost too quiet to say out loud. In case saying it makes it real. If growing old here is past what I can afford, then maybe the answer is to go. Once that thought takes root, it does not leave. And the internet is very good at feeding it. You start seeing the clips. A couple thriving in a Thai beach town. Another in a hill village in Portugal. Living well on money that looks impossible from where you sit. A retired nurse strolls to her flat in Thailand. $500 a month. A pool glints behind her. A former teacher in Lisbon talks through her mornings. She walks to the market. She eats well. She lingers in a cafe. And the last medical bill that turned her stomach is years behind her. These videos are not fakes. They show something real. So let me lay out what that life actually looks like. In the spots pulling the most attention. Start with Mexico. Puerto Vallarta, San Miguel de Allende, Mérida. A 2-bedroom in a good neighborhood goes for $600 to $1,000 a month. A sit-down dinner at a neighborhood place runs $2 to $5. English is common in the settled expat pockets. The grocery aisles feel familiar, and the time zones often line up with your family back home. To many Americans on Social Security, Mexico barely reads as foreign. It is the Southwest with a kinder exchange rate. Same dry light. Except a dollar finally carries weight. Thailand runs a different math. In Chiang Mai, a furnished, modern flat can be had for under $500 a month. A trip to a good private hospital costs $15 to $30 for the appointment. Procedures that run tens of thousands back home cost a sliver of that here. Often in clinics built for international patients. Some used to flinch every time a hospital envelope showed up in the mail. They described leaving a Thai ward feeling something they had almost forgotten. Relief. The clean, uncomplicated kind. Portugal pulls a different person. It is not the bargain Southeast Asia is. And most who land there will tell you cost was never the point. What Portugal offers is ease. Streets that feel safe. Systems that hold up. A daily rhythm that does not feel like surrender. Something you forgot you had lost, slipped quietly back into your hands. The country spent years building visa programs to make older newcomers feel wanted. Vietnam showed up later. Ho Chi Minh City. Da Nang. Costs that stay very low. Infrastructure modernizing at a sprint. And an energy a lot of Americans find charging. After years of watching their own towns wind down, people arrive planning 6 months. They look up 3 years later, no longer sure when the trial run became their life. And then there is Japan. It catches nearly everyone off guard here. It is not cheap. The language gap is real. The cultural expectations can be steep. And yet Japan sits near the top of the list for Americans collecting Social Security abroad. Say with that, it tells you something. This is not only about the lowest rent. For a real and growing slice of people, the hunt is not for cheap. It is for functional. Streets that stay spotless. Trains that arrive exactly when the board says. A society built on consideration, not constant friction. Picture being worn down because the basics at home keep failing you. To that person, reliability is worth more than any cheap rent. And the list runs far past 5 countries. Ask a room full of people chasing this. You will hear the Philippines, Costa Rica, Panama, Ecuador, plenty more. The map of escape keeps widening. Because these places do not compete on cost alone. They compete on the texture of an ordinary day. And right now, for a certain generation of older Americans, the homeland is losing that contest. Quick one for you. Has someone in your life floated the idea of growing old somewhere else? It is more common than most people guess. Here is the piece those sunny clips always skip. Picture a woman, 35 years running a school, careful with money her whole life, ready, at last, for something lighter. She lands in Portugal at 68, and the first 3 years are everything the clips promised. She walks farther in a week than she had in years. The weight she carried for so long lifts off her chest. She sits in open-air cafes. She pays next to nothing for coffee. And for the first time in ages, she is not running from anything. Then the 4th year comes. Her closest friend back home gets a frightening diagnosis. Getting there takes weeks of planning. A brutal flight across the ocean, on a body in its late 60s, landing somewhere that already feels a touch less hers. Her kids are scattered across states, all busy, all in different time zones. Her granddaughter takes those first wobbling steps. She catches it on a phone screen. An ocean and 4,000 miles between them. Alone, in a quiet flat. She is not miserable. By most measures, the life is still good. But something settles in. Something she has no clean word for. Not quite sadness. More like a slow recognition. She belongs fully to neither place. Not the one she lives in. Not the one she came from. She is lodged between 2 homes. And that space belongs on no map at all. This is not one woman's private story. It surfaces over and over in expat circles, usually said in a low voice, a little carefully, like a confession. You go away for a few years. You turn back around, and the threads that held you there have snapped. The people you knew have scattered or passed or simply lived on without you. The block did not pause for you. The city did not hold still, and neither did you. There's a line I keep circling back to. Growing old is its own slow emigration. The world you knew drifts off even if you never move an inch. People retire. Shops change hands. The street fills with faces you do not know. Move abroad and you just make that drift sharper. Faster. All at once. This is the weight nobody warns about. The one that has nothing to do with money. And then comes a trap people do not see arriving. For some, money drove the leaving. But if money was the reason you went, money can be the reason you cannot return. The house is sold. Prices at home sprinted past you. A bank squints at your age and calls you too old for a mortgage. What felt like an open door swings only one way. Underneath the emotional layer sits a flatter one. Bureaucratic. Unglamorous. The kind that lands like a wall you never spotted on the map. Most Americans assume the day they go free of the tax system. Out of the country, clear of the paperwork. You might think that. You would be wrong. Only 2 nations on Earth tax their own citizens by the passport they hold, not the soil they live on. The United States is one of them. So it changes nothing about where you live. Nothing about how many years you have been away. Nothing about whether you ever plan to come home. Carry the passport and you owe a federal return every year. Even if you owe no money. Even if every dollar came from somewhere else. The paperwork trails you. And that is only the opening. Hold more than $10,000 in a foreign account at any point in the year. That is not a high bar. And the separate filing has to reach the Treasury Department. Miss it, and the penalties can turn brutal. Even when the slip was honest. Even when the person never knew the rule existed. Then comes the part that stuns people. Plenty of foreign banks would rather not deal with Americans at all. American rules pile a heavy compliance load on any bank holding one of these accounts. Many reach a simple verdict. Not worth the trouble. So, people land. They sign a lease. They unpack. And then they find that getting a simple checking account open is far tougher than they pictured. And stateside, some banks are no friendlier to the ones who left. There are documented cases. Account shut on short notice, just after an address switched to a foreign country. Now, let me be fair. The people who have actually done this will push back. And they have a point. For most of them, all of this is solvable. They keep an address in the States. They use the right account. They file a short form and they shrug it off. It is a headache, not a prison wall. So I will not pretend the paperwork is a monster. But it is a different kind of complexity than the one they thought they were escaping. And one piece of it sits quietly under everything. Your income is in dollars. If the dollar slips against the local currency over the years, your cushion erodes. Quietly. While you sleep. Still, for most people, the paperwork is solvable. Health care sits in a whole other category. Medicare does not cross the border with you. With very narrow exceptions, it pays only for care on American soil. The day you make your home elsewhere, you step outside that net. One you funded your whole working life. Not reduced. Not partial. Gone. In countries like Thailand or Mexico, private care comes cheap. Often excellent. Well-trained doctors. Modern hospitals. International accreditation. Plenty of Americans abroad pay less for care than they did at home. But private international insurance for a 70-year-old already carrying conditions is not cheap. And the coverage always comes with limits that bite. And cost is only half of it. Picture yourself at 74. In a hospital. The dead of night. A country whose language is not the one your mind runs on. You fumble to get across what hurts. Your past conditions. Your allergies. With half sentences, hand signs, and an app that keeps garbling your words. The nurses do their best. Time keeps sliding. The treatment itself might be first rate. The night can still be terrifying, in a way you cannot rehearse from your couch, while you watch someone else's cheerful video about it. And there is a deeper version of this. The videos never touch it. Push the timeline forward, you are not the healthy newcomer anymore. You are well into old age now, and you need real, ongoing, serious care. Or worse, picture the day your husband or wife is gone, and you are suddenly alone, in a place whose language you never fully learned. No family on the same continent, carrying a hospital and a grief at the same time. There is a specific fragility that comes with aging in a place that never quite became yours, and most people only grasp it once they are already standing inside it. If this is sharpening what moving abroad really costs, a thumbs up helps. It pushes the video to the next person who needs it. So here is the question that will not leave. Knowing every piece of it. The tax filings. The frozen accounts. The Medicare cliff. The slow drift from home. The distance from people you love. Why do so many still want out? And why, knowing the real cost, does the dream refuse to die? The answer sits inside the gap between two numbers. About 44% of Americans have seriously weighed retiring abroad. Fewer than 700,000 actually do it. Under 1% of everyone on Social Security. The dream is enormous. Almost nobody follows through. And the gap is not about ignorance. It is not a shortage of facts. It is the sheer weight of a real life pressing down on a real person. Selling a house, rebuilding a tax setup in a foreign country from nothing, figuring out how another nation's healthcare actually runs, fighting a language gap, even a small one, day after day, letting go of a community, even one already hollowed out by the years. None of that is small, and all of it rests on something even harder to name. Here's what does not get said enough. Nobody really retires in a place. They retire into a system, one they absorbed over decades without ever noticing they were absorbing it. You know the pharmacy that stays open past midnight. You know exactly who picks up the phone when the furnace quits in January. You know which neighbor keeps a spare key and actually checks in when your lights stay dark too long. You know how an appointment goes, what to ask, which form to sign, how the insurance call will play out. You know the bus that runs late on a Sunday. You know the clerk who remembers your name and your usual order. You know which aisle hides your brand. You know the drive home in the dark without thinking. That whole invisible web of small, practical know-how. You never think about it until the day it vanishes and you start from zero. Move abroad and you hand it all back at once. Then you build the whole thing again. New language. A system you do not understand. A town where you know nearly no one. That is a particular brand of tired. Very hard to feel from the outside. So they do the arithmetic. They line up income against expenses. They scroll the photos of Lisbon and Chiang Mai again. They feel the real weight of uprooting everything this late. And they stay. Not because it is easy, because the hard they have is at least the hard they understand. A person can shoulder a known hardship far easier than an unknown one, even when the unknown one would, on paper, leave them better off. That is not a defect in human thinking. It is just how we are wired. And it grows truer, not weaker, as the cost of a wrong call starts to feel enormous. And then comes a thing that shuts down more of these conversations than all the rest. Family. The whole idea sounds reasonable, right up until you sit with one specific picture. You, an ocean away, the day something breaks with a person you love. A 40-minute drive becomes a last-minute flight. Top dollar. Built in a rush. On a body already worn out. For plenty of folks, that single picture settles it. And yes, the kids are busy. Scattered. Hard to see anyway. But busy and reachable is a different thing than busy and an ocean off. And still, the dream refuses to die, because the force behind it has not eased. The countries pulling serious attention are not doing it by accident. Some figured it out on purpose. Some just read the numbers. They saw a large, financially stable English-speaking group hunting for exactly what they could offer. Mexico leaned in harder than anyone. The closeness alone is half the draw. The time zones line up. A trip back does not feel like an expedition. The expat pockets already have English-speaking doctors, familiar groceries, infrastructure shaped to American habits. For anyone craving the relief of leaving without the shock of it, Mexico threads that needle best. It does not feel like emigrating. It feels like landing where your dollars mean something again. Thailand draws the ones willing to trade more cultural distance for deeper savings. Excellent private care. Low daily costs. A real daily life in the northern towns and along the coast. It has become a long-term home for thousands. Not a pretty escape that just photographs well? Portugal became the aspirational pick. Europe without European prices. Mild weather. Safe cities. A pace built on coffee and conversation, not output. Vietnam keeps arriving quietly, pulling people who want the charge of a place still becoming something. And Japan stays the outlier. The one that makes you rethink the whole trend. Nobody moves there for a bargain. They move because it works. But here is an honest edge. The videos skip. When enough people with stronger money arrive, prices move. The same expat wave feels like relief to a newcomer. To the people already there, it can shove rent clean out of reach. That is not a reason to judge anyone. It is just part of the real picture. And leaving it out is its own kind of dishonesty. Which brings us to the question under all of it. The one no single number can settle. Is leaving America a kind of freedom? Or something more complicated? Step back. Take in the whole frame. The widening gap between income and cost. Community quietly wearing away. The hundreds of thousands who already packed up. The millions more running the sums at the kitchen table. What you are watching is a generation reaching one conclusion. Without drama. Without any announcement. The retirement their country promised for decades no longer comes at a price they can actually meet. For some people, leaving really is liberation. They land in a daily life they could never have pictured inside the old grind. Real community. Financial breathing room. A rhythm built for human beings. To them, this is not a step down. It is a step up. For others, the truth is messier and more honest. It is a workaround for a broken structure. Chosen under pressure. Carrying losses that are baked in. Losses that never show up on a cost of living chart. Distance from the people they love. Complexity nobody warned them about. Medical uncertainty humming in the background. A homeland that slowly stops feeling like home. They make the trade because the other option is worse. Going broke in a place that already lost the belonging they once had. Still, it stays a trade. It is never a free win. A trade, not a windfall. Hold those two words. They are the whole thing. That is the piece the cheerful videos drop. And the scary ones drop it too. One side sells you a pool. The other sells you a panic. Neither tells you the truth, which is quieter and harder and more useful. There is no clean exit here. There is a choice between two kinds of difficulty. And the honest work is knowing which one you are choosing. Choose with clear eyes. Or the choice quietly makes itself for you. So here's the twist I promised at the start. The thing the cheap beach videos will never tell you. Take the great majority. The 44% who think hard, then quietly stay. For them, the decision is not a burst of courage. It is a moment of clear-eyed honesty. They run the same sums you might be running. They waited children too nearby to abandon without paying a steep price. The grandkids who deserve to be seen in person, not through a screen. The plain truth of becoming the new stranger in town at 72. Hauling a bad knee. Holding a Medicare card that goes dead the moment it crosses a border. That is more weight than they will lift. So they stay. And here's what I want you to hear clearly. Staying is not the coward's move. For most people, it is the correct calculation. They are not trapped by fear. They have run the arithmetic all the way to the end, and they chose the difficulty they already know how to carry. That is not weakness. That is wisdom in very plain clothes. But if you stay with your eyes open. Know exactly what you are choosing and what it costs. Because all of this, when you really stop and sit with it, comes down to a promise. For generations, working people were sold the same simple line: pay in, put a little away, play it straight. And when you are old, the country will keep a safe place set aside for you. Not lavish, just secure. That was the whole bargain. Modest, but real. A floor under your feet for the years after the work was done. Today, the math says that promise is coming apart. Not all of it. Not for everyone. But enough that hundreds of thousands have already voted with a one-way ticket. The people moving to Mexico, Thailand, Portugal are not making a political point. They're doing the oldest thing in the world. What people always do when their home stops covering the basics. They go hunting for a place that will. And what that reveals about the country they left behind is a question worth holding, even when the answer is not a comfortable one. So let me turn it to you. Has the arithmetic of growing old in America changed where you picture your own last chapter? Be honest with me, down in the comments.